Hey everybody. So Mythgard has had a fairly successful 2019. It has gone from alpha to closed beta into open beta and has had some very significant reviews from a lot of established CCG personalities, etc., but mostly from just people who have tried it, have been fairly happy with the product, and I myself am very excited for what is to come. That said, there have been more ups than downs for Mythgard in 2019, and moving forward into 2020, everybody is sort of buckled in. There is a timeline, a roadmap that is already available on mythgardgame.com that you can sort of look at, but that is a very broad stroke, a broad sort of view of what is coming down the pipe. There are, two expansions and like maybe an overhaul of this or that or other patches, etc. But there's nothing really in terms of, a little bit of the minutia, the little tiny sort of fixes or more of the small scale stuff that some of us would like to see. And I wanted to maybe break into what I personally am hoping to see at least explored or delved into or perhaps considered for 2020 moving forward for Mythgard. Now, these obviously are not completely clean and super delved into detailed ideas that are fleshed out. These are merely just musings that I've had with other people that I think have some legs or have some potential to bring a better richness to the game and perhaps bring a little bit more excitement and variety to Mythgard. Mythgard's already a game that has a lot of depth to it. It has, it's very layered, and though the rule set are fairly simplistic, and it might seem like a clone of other games, or within the same family of creatures, minions, units, whatever, 2 health totals, and a mana curve. It's so much more than that because there is many layers of depth to the game that really bring it to another echelon when it comes to strategy and gameplay. So here are 5 things that I would really like to see at least explored in 2020 for Mythgard. The first thing, and I should probably note that there is no real no tier system here. These are all in no particular order. But the first thing I want to look at is 2v2. Now, I think that 2v2 needs to be explored a little bit more from the terms of competitiveness, because I think that there's very much a lot of people who really favor 2v2 over other genres. I think that 2v2 needs to have a few things. Number one, 2v2 needs 2v2 specific cards that are only valid or only usable within 2v2. Those cards can be interactable with your opponent. For instance, a card that says something like can be deployed on your partner's side of the board versus only your own side, or cards that say when you and your partner both use your power in the same turn, it gets +1/+1 or something like that. I think that 2v2 related cards or specific cards are going to be something that would add a little spice to the genre and add a little spice to the format, and could really enrich it as well. Also, a ranked ladder for 2v2 is something that I think, with a bigger player base, obviously, can really enrich what people's drive is in the game itself. Because people really like competition. They like to really have something on the line and really rate themselves on a tier list, on some type of ladder, for where they stand amidst the rest of the player base. A 2v2 ladder, a ranked system, is something that is not newly discussed, but I think that it's something that people will want, and I hope that they kind of think about in 2020. Now, with these new cards and a ranked system, would attract new people. Obviously, as soon as there is something on the line, people tend to gravitate more towards very efficient deck lists, very high tier 1 deck lists, obviously, if you're laddering. And I think that once that comes into play, there will need to be a 2v2 banned card list, because of cards that really take advantage of graveyards, board states, along those lines, especially when spells can be used on your partner's side as well. Being able to stack more than one card or more than one spell, you're really doubling your mana pool to really get one objective through. And I mean, like, I know that Volition now has been nerfed to a point where you can't Volition something 6 or 7 times and get through. But at the same time, I think that the very careful ban list through once a 2v2 mode has been sort of, a rank system has been put in place, is something that is definitely worth thinking about to really maintain a diversity of 2v2 while not really overpowering it with certain archetypes. The next thing that I think needs to be explored, or I would like to be explored, are cosmetic upgrades, but not necessarily to the point where they're purchased per se. Now, I'm going to be very specific about what I was thinking about, because you could always, in certain other games, you can buy portraits, you can buy avatars, you can buy bling for your cards, etc. And that's really cool. But I think that it would be really interesting if, for those of you who are aware already, there was alternate art cards that are only available by opening in packs. You cannot use Essence for them. You cannot use Mithril for them. It is really something as an extra bonus, a little grab bag type of thing, where you open a pack and you're like, wow, here's an alternate art, whatever, Magnus Thorson. Like, that is really, it's sort of, because you can always craft a prestige version, but you cannot craft an alternate art version. Now, obviously, alternate art requires resources and time for the artist to make something different, but some of them already have alternate art. For example, the placeholder art that was so prominent in purple in alpha state, which were hilarious. I think those were, if those were reintegrated back into it, it would be kind of fun, where there was a drop rate for alternate art. These cards cannot be dusted, let's say, and they cannot be crafted. These are legitimately just little extra nuggets that players can show off, because anybody can dust some collection and get a prestige Sapo, let's say. But if you slam down a Sapo that is an alternate art Sapo, I think that has a lot of extra weight to it, and it's something that I think as a player to be able to play and show off is very fun, and as someone who gets to see it against them is like, oh, he pulled a blah blah blah. That's kind of cool. It'll entice people to buy more packs, so from a revenue perspective, there's a little bit more enticement there, but at the same time, it's not going to change the game, because it's not a boost, it's not a pay to win in any way, it's just an extra alternate art that would be really cool to see. The next thing I really want to see in Mythgard in 2020 is more achievements. And these achievements, there already is an achievements bar, but they're very basic and boring. Playing X amount of purple cards, playing X amount of red cards, blue cards, yellow cards, etc. Killing X amount of minions was really the only one that I was keeping an eye on. I thought that was a really interesting one to do, where you're like, okay, I've killed X amount of minions, and once you hit that 10,000 mark, you're like, all right, I'm really not that interested in anything else. But there's really a billion different ways that you can look into rewarding players for trying different things and just keeping their progress bar moving forward. And I mean, ever since the days of, Xbox Live, when you'd have achievements for various random things, like, I'm thinking back of the Halo days of, get X amount of double kills, a triple kill of this or whatever, but find all the skulls and do all this. And in card games, I think that other card games do it very well, especially card games like Gwent that have hundreds of little micro achievements that some are very difficult to achieve and take a long time, and others are just built over time. And I'm thinking things like play, and they can have tiers and echelons, but something like play 100 items, and then the next phase of that is play 500 items, play 2,000 items, and each one of those progress bars gets you a little bit. Like the smallest one can be 100 coin, then 500 coin, and then 1,000 coin, let's say. And this is just a way for people to play play and really catch their progress and say like, oh, you know what, I'm really, really close to playing my 1,000th item. I'm like 90 items away. Let's play some purple, create items, and then have fun that way. And it gives them something to work for in that regard. And players like achievements, players like progress bars, they like percentage completion, they like that kind of stuff. I know I do, because when I'm playing other card games and I'm looking at what my particular achievements are, sometimes I'll go and lean towards one just to knock an achievement out so I can have it on my quote unquote mantle, have it in my medal chest, so to speak, that this is something that I've accomplished. Now, bigger ones can have bigger rewards, and smaller ones, obviously, but will have smaller rewards. But I think that it's something worth looking into, and there's a million different varieties and simple things you can do, like, play, 500 two-colored creatures or two-colored spells or whatever, or play 1,000 enchantments, or attack with agility X amount of times, or, have a minion be buffed 5 individual times. Like, that's a pretty tough thing to do, but if you have the right deck and you're playing towards it, it's a fun thing to sort of pull off. Or play Thunderclap, or kill X amount of things with Thunderclap, or kill 10 creatures with Cataclysm. Like, that would be a big one, and that would be an interesting one, and I think that it would be a lot of fun and give a little bit more depth and a little bit more excitement for people playing on a day-to-day basis, things for them to work for. Again, 1,000 different concepts. I went from 1 billion to 1 million to 1,000, but there's literally thousands and thousands of iterations of this that you can go to that will add extra depth and layer to a player's progression. The next one I was looking at is, I think that the game needs to have the ladder matter a little bit more. Now, if I can sort of elaborate on that, it's that there is prestige and there is some swagger that you get for finishing in the top X amount in any game. And even though there might not be in-game rewards associated with it, a player's pride is something that they'll be able to take with them in order to, give them the motivation to place high on a ladder. That is one thing separately. I know that my drive to attain a certain rank is only so far, and I'm not there to play and rank up, and my grind, my desire to grind is not from me wanting to place high on a ladder. I like to grind and play because I like to play different decks and explore and just learn the game and become a student of that, of the meta, and learn and see what is out there and try new things. But other players are not like that. Other players want to make sure that they can find the most efficient route to the top of the ladder, but they also want something a little bit more to play for. Now, the tournament scene is what it is. It's been said by Rhino that the tournament scene is community driven, that myself, yourself, whoever's out there, 98.3 Media, etc., who are putting on these events, that is the esports scene. Now, if something like 98.3 actually factored in the standings into qualified for big tournaments, I think that is a little bit more of making the ladder matter. Now, not everyone's going to be able to get into these tournaments because sometimes it's just the top 100 that get to qualify, etc. But I think that something beyond that, something along the lines of in-game rewards and in-game flair and cosmetics that show off what a player has achieved, is in itself something unique and good for the game, because it drives players to play beyond just attaining gold, attaining, mythic, attaining champions rank. Those are all great, but sometimes players want a little bit more to show off, to work for, because they know that they might not be a top 10 player, but maybe squeaking into the top 500 is worth a really cool border for their avatar, or it's cool. It'll make for a really cool card back that they get, or a really cool title underneath their name on the game. Other card games do this, wherein ladder standings factor into both tournament consideration, but it also factors into what their trinkets and their cosmetics that they earn at the end of the game. They'll get their gold, their coin, their mithril, all that other stuff, their essence, but they're also getting a border that shows, hey, in season 1, I finished in the top 10. Here's my top 10 season banner or avatar or whatever. And you'll have that forever. And other games do this, and it's something, a point of pride, where you can queue into somebody and you're like, wow, this guy finished, he finished first in whatever season, because he's the only one in the game to have this unique border. And it's all just graphics and programming. Excuse me, but it's all earned. It has nothing to do with what a player can buy or otherwise, use their in-game resources for. It is legitimately something that they earn through the ladder as an extra incentive. Maybe the top player in a season earns something unique. Players 2 through 10 get something unique. Players 11 through 100 get something unique. And players 101 through 1,000 get something unique on top of their in-game rewards that are coin or essence or mithril related. I think that that's something that would be really cool to have as well, to really reward the players and really give them a badge and say, you did this in this season. You were the man or woman in that season. You fucking ran the show. Good for you. I think that that's something that they might want to look at. The last thing that I would really like to see them explore, and I'm going to need to explain this because when I mentioned this in stream, I did get some pushback. But at the same time, when I did dive into it and explain the requirements for it, a lot of people were more, came around to the idea of it being a little bit more digestible and not completely wacky and out there. So the idea is an alternate win condition surrounding this is not my idea specifically. This is a viewer's idea that I kind of honed in on and really did a little bit more math on. And I mean, not excessive amounts of math, let's be honest. But I thought about really hard and dismissed immediately as a silly idea. And then as I further thought about it, I thought it was a good idea. Imagine a win condition where if you have all 5 heralds of, the orange heralds on the board at the start of a turn, you win. Now think about this. Because as silly as it may sound, there's so much removal into difficult aspects in the game to keep creatures alive that it's already hard enough to get them to go. Or maybe not the start of the turn, perhaps the end of the turn, or if they're all on the board at the same time, you win the game. And people with alternate win condition, problems with alternate win conditions might say that, well, that's too easy. It's just having 5 units on the board. But it's not just 5 units, because you also need to have a very specific and very precise mana bar with all the gems in it. You need your 2 orange gems, your 2 purple gems. I believe you need 2 blue. So 2 orange, 2 purple, 2 blue. Then you need your red, your yellow, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm missing a color. But regardless, the graphics will be there to figure it out. But if you have the gems there properly, in order to make sure that your mana bar is precise enough to get all the heralds playable, then you have to make sure that they're alive, that they're on the board at the same time, and you have the right burns for it. So I think if you're able to do that, an instant win is something of a reward for you, because good for you for doing it. And I think that it's something worth exploring. I do not think a deck like this would ever be a tier 1 because of the fact that there's way too many ways to get rid of heralds. But I think that it's definitely something that is worthwhile and really could add extra spice to the game. And that can open a whole bunch of different doorways and windows into other alternate win conditions. I know some people don't like alternate win conditions, but this, I think, is something that, I mean, the heralds are there. They signal the end of the world and doom and etc. So I think that if they were there, it'd be really cool for people to sort of maybe dive into and explore. So there it is. There are 5 ideas that I would really like for Mythgard to sort of explore, think about. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Constructive criticism is always good. I think we all want to see this game grow and expand and really thrive. I know I do, and I've been thinking about some of these ideas for a little while. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So please comment down below, be kind, and I mean, it's one thing to tell me I'm an idiot, but it's another thing to tell me why. And you're entitled to your opinion, but I want to know why I'm right or wrong, or why my ideas are either good, bad, or completely forgettable. Thanks again. You can catch me twitch.tv/watchflake, on Twitter @watchflake. Hope to see you very soon. Be kind to one another, and Happy New Year.